Okay. Okay.
Got it. Right. Well, Coral asked me how I am. And I'm going to tell you tonight how I am. Some time ago, I was going to speak to you about the logotherapy principles as it is captured in a very well-known psalm, Psalm 23. And then what happened on one of the holiest days in the Jewish calendar, which is a most significant day because it's the day that is called Simcha Torah, a rejoicing in the law. It's the last of the Jewish festivals. And the Jewish festivals actually tell a whole story from the deliverance out of bondage, from the receiving of the law, from the long battle to get to grips with it, till the point of a real breakthrough and a Yom Kippur repentance, to a new dawn which actually ends with a rejoicing in being able to embrace the law in our hearts. And the law is actually the principles of meaningful living. That's what it is. So it's most significant for us as logotherapists that this assault, which you must all have heard about, came about on this particular day. You know, evil always comes as a shock. It disrupts. It stops the flow of. It numbs you, and it catches you off guard because you're thrown for a while. And you know, when the images of what was actually happening in Israel started coming through on our television screens, we were all in shock. It was beyond belief that the fences of protection that we have erected around our country was broken through. And terrorists have infiltrated in their hundreds and occupied all the kibbutzim and border towns bordering Gaza. It's only beginning to become evident what happened there, but that there was indiscriminate killing, breaking into the homes of families, shooting them, entire families, or abducting them. The latest that came through today was of when the soldiers have gone in to clear these kibbutzim and border towns of the terrorists, that they came across the most shocking scenes. You know, the scenes that the Allied forces, when they liberated the camps after the Holocaust, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. And the most shocking thing was, you know, overturned baby carriages and carts and the bodies of 40 babies. 40 babies, okay? And then, you know, to see the scenes of whole families being abducted, and the horror of it. And, you know, there was a concert, for example, on this day of rejoicing in the Negev desert, attended by youngsters. And there's scenes from terrorists emerging as if from nowhere and shooting at the fleeing youngsters that didn't know what was happening. 250 young bodies were recovered from that site. Youngsters celebrating a concert in the desert. And you know, the scenes that you cannot believe, like one where I saw an elderly grandmother And, you know, her daughter had given an account on the television screens where her grief, her anguish at recognizing her grandmother being taken by terrorists. She's 84. She's on life-giving medication, which if she doesn't get, she is certain to die. But what struck me there, and I couldn't believe it, was that these faces of the terrorists, as if they're just doing a job. You know, no compassion. They've got human faces, but how come? It truly is a scene of evil incarnate. That is really the only way to describe it, of men that have become so degraded and have lost their will to meaning to such an extent that they delight in killing. You know, to witness scenes of these terrorists celebrating in London before the embassy of Israel, there was a gathering of those who were pro-Palestinians celebrating. How can you celebrate this kind of murderous and absolutely inhumane attack upon an innocent, a civilian population? You know, there were a smattering of soldiers because we were caught unaware. Of the 900 that are now have been counted, that have been murdered, most of them are civilians, and there are more than 150 hostages taken, women and children. And to see a mother clutching her baby as she's being dragged away, it is, I can't tell you, but you know what? In my deep anguish, and one could only just weep and weep, and it's a grief so deep that I realized as I was feeling it, I was reminded of a Holocaust survivor whom I'd interviewed, Eva, who was taken to the camps as a 14-year-old, and who vowed in the camps that she would return one day in a triumphant way, which she did 40 years after her release, because she first had to build up a family again, having lost her entire family, 80 members of it, with the exception of an aunt and a mother, okay? But she stood in the reconstructed gas chambers, and she wept for those who were gassed there. And she said, they could not destroy my humanity. And you know how grateful, in a sense, I felt that I could care so deeply that I could weep for those who have gone through such agony. And I could feel their agony, and I could experience the horror of it. It's a gift of love. Psalm 23, my word. You know, I was going to read it to you and discuss it in terms of its logotherapy principles, but I want to read it to you again. And we will look at those principles again in this present situation. You know it so well. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yes, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod of correction, your staff of guidance, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely, surely, goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. My word, logotherapy principles, that life is unconditionally meaningful, that we can experience its meaning in the many happy and wonderful, tranquil moments of our lives, moments of love and of being in touch with nature, with one another, with the joys of living, strong enough that when we do come through, when evil comes across our path through tragedy, through disaster, that we can go through it with that kind of sense of being accompanied, that meaning that life has never lost its meaning, even in the worst of circumstances, and that the end of this walk is a table of overflowing gratitude and awe in the very face of the enemies that have attacked and have tried to spoil and destroy and bring an absolute end to what is meaningful in life. And so this song is as relevant in this situation as it was when I thought I was going to share it with you in the context of the principles of meaningful living. I want to tell you what emerged out of all of this. Because what the contrast is, and now you know, here is the deep, deep lessons that Frankl himself learned in the Holocaust. Being faced with what ought not to be. What did that do? It provoked the defiant power of the human spirit to strive for what ought to be, to do what should be done in the face of what is evil and wrong. And what is the motivation? To actually awaken what is in all of us, a deep-seated will to meaning, what Frankl described as an unconscious relatedness to the divine. Whether we confess that divine as God or not is not the issue. The issue is whether we live a meaningful life. Whether and what is the contrast, and which came out so graphically now. For the first time after the Holocaust here among the Jewish people, the stark contrast of man's inhumanity to man, to man's humanity to man. Because do you know, as much as I wept over the horror of such inhumane actions of people that I can't believe that they still have a human face, there were scenes that I can't tell you, it made me weep as well. What scenes? Do you know that we were kind of in a loggerheads before all of this happened? And I think it was a kind of a wake-up call too. We were involved in political strife and division, and you know, one person's opinion against the other person's opinion. But what happened now? It's, you know, our president put it this way. He said, Israel's enemies have underestimated the Israeli spirit. The spirit that gets awakened when we are all threatened with the same thing. What has happened here? It has provoked a common will to common meaning, which Frankl said, this is the necessity if mankind is not to destroy itself by being, not really doing anything about evil, letting it flourish, even, trying to compromise with it, not wanting to have the great responsibility, like Frankl said, the fear of human greatness. It's too much. But you know what? When the chips are down, those with whose hearts are in the right place get awakened to a common call of joining together. And this is the humanity of man towards man that we've witnessed here. Everywhere in Israel, centers were opened up to assist those who were so affected by what happened. Long lines of people wanting to give blood. People bringing food and clothing and whatever that they think they can give to bereaved families or to the soldiers that are now fighting a battle for our lives. Because, the intent is very clear. It's been said openly. And it's been masterminded by Iran and its terrorist proxies, and we are facing what might be a multi-layered war, because Hezbollah, one of its proxies, with thousands of rockets, are just waiting to pounce also, apart from that we are truly, in a sense, being surrounded by. And you can go and read Psalm 118 as an exact description of the situation we are in now. But what I witnessed in terms of youngsters standing outside grocery stores, collecting from those who bought things, collecting goods for the families that are still cooped up somewhere, or that can't be reached, and or that are in such a state of shock and bereavement, having lost their homes, and living in other people's homes. It was just so beautiful to see. And then, on the screens too, came the most wonderful scenes of people from all over the world standing in solidarity with the people of Israel, with the flags of Israel, saying that we are with you. One of the organizers, Paula White, she is evangelical Christian in America, and she was one of Trump's advisors, said, there are millions upon millions of people praying with and for you. And this is so. And the messages that came flooding in from all over the world, and to us personally from you, every one of you that cared, was so beautiful, so absolutely a contrast to the evil which we were forced to experience here. That, it had such an uplifting effect upon us. It's like it says there in Psalm 118, the Lord is for me, life is for me among those who help me. That we feel we're not alone. Therefore, I shall see my desire on those who hate me. How do we overcome evil with good? The wake-up call is to live a life of such a compassion and care and love for and respect for each other. That and that we treasure the treasures that are given to us. What are the treasures given to us? The vulnerable, the babies, the children, the youngsters, the elderly, the sick, the poor. These are our treasures. And as we embrace those treasures and as we defend them, as we stand up against the enemy, there's only one war that is justifiable. And it's the war to go and eliminate those who do such or threaten harm to our vulnerable. And that's on a physical level, but on a spiritual level, this is what we do. We stand up against what is wrong. We don't overlook it. We don't compromise with it. We stand up for what is right, and we protect what is precious. It's how we react to the vulnerable amongst us that really show forth human greatness. And it's that absolute contrast of humanity that what we have actually been created to be. Humane. What does human mean but humane? And those who go against their humanity lose their human face. They become absolutely decadent as they fall trapped to what they've chosen in their lives. It's what is the fundamentals of meaningful living and of the real laws of meaningful living. It is captured when it is said, when the divine says to us, choose this day whom you will serve. Life and blessing, or death and cursing. Choose life so that you may live. That's it. I make no apology that I refer to biblical scriptures, because it doesn't matter where these fundamental truths come from, but these fundamental truths are to be found there. And if it can illuminate our minds as to what our lives are supposed to be, then by all means. Logotherapy is not a religion, but Frankl said, without any ambiguity, that we are unconsciously related to the divine. And our striving is for ultimate meaning. The kind of meaning that actually looks way past death and can see a new world on the other side, where righteousness flourishes and where evil will not be found anymore. Because, when I was first confronted with the stories of Holocaust survivors, I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know what to do with it until I had an understanding, almost like a vision, that out of those gas, the ovens where the gassed bodies were burnt, it's like their spirits arose to a place of safety and of waiting, and that the reward of any innocent baby and child is there. It's captured, it's held in promise. The only people that will not be there are those who maliciously set out to break those laws, and instead of loving their neighbor as themselves, found power in hatred, and in domination, and in making people terrorized. That's an evil sense of power. But the power of good to overcome that evil is what I've experienced right now here, with, as anguished as I am, that I can see the beauty of what is happening in bringing us all together in such a bond of unity and love, and to see the unity with us and the love pouring out on us from people all over the world. Now, you know, as I keep on saying in logotherapy, we expound the truths of the meanings of the real meaning of life. And those truths have got such power over its distortions, over the lies that make us doubt the meaning of life, that make us feel despairing. It's so wonderful that, you know, that we can be pushed over the brink of despair, but we'll find ourselves lifted again, believing. It's an incredible thing, this beauty of a divine spark that has been invested in us as human beings to show forth what is good, what is beautiful, what is true, in stark and victorious contrast to its opposite. So I'm sorry if I struggled for words, but I just needed to share this with you. And here we are. Thank you for being there, and that I could speak to you and know that you are listening with a compassionate ear, and that your hearts are here with us in Israel. Thank you.
Teria,
yes.
I wanted to thank you for sharing as openly and honestly as you have. We can't imagine what it must be like living and experiencing what you're going through. The one truth that I can underline is that your president said that when they attacked, they underestimated the Israeli spirit. I think that it's bigger than that.
Yes.
I think that when they attacked, they underestimated the spirit of the collective world, of all those people you mentioned who are behind it, behind you and what Israel is going through. I think they underestimated the fact, and it's a terrible thing to say, but I've come to realize that crisis somehow brings out the good. And it's going to bring out the good in buckets. But what really distresses me is that we need a crisis to do that.
Yeah.
I've never understood how we need a crisis to bring out all that good. Why can't humankind exist using their conscience and their humanness? Why is it that we need devastation to actually elicit that humanness in people? But that said, certainly they underestimated the Israeli spirit, and what they don't realize is that in a crisis like that, firstly, every Jew around the world becomes an Israeli, and far more than that. There are many, many millions of people who in that moment became an Israeli. We are all in this moment Israeli. And that is underestimating.
That is so beautiful. I got a letter from one of our beautiful trainers. I couldn't, it was so moving that I can't tell you what it did to me, but this is what she said. She said, it moves me to tears. This terrible, unprecedented attack that took place. And she said, I adore the Jewish people. I always have and always will. No one can ever utter a bad word about the Jews in my presence because they are my people. She's Greek. All of my closest friends are Jewish, And as much as I adore my Greek heritage and people, just as much do I love my Jewish people. And this is it, you know, that we cross boundaries of differences and become one. And what a truth, that what Frankl realized, that in having a common will to common meaning. And like you say, Coral, it's sad to think that we need a crisis to wake us up. But you know what a crisis is telling us? It need not be like that. We can educate our children. We can relate to each other in ways that does not make that crisis necessary. That, you know, that we have that end result of sitting at a table of joy with our cup overflowing and our enemies looking on. We've got nothing to do with them anymore. So that is what my feeling of mission is for us as logotherapists, just like it was for Frankl, to elicit this meaning in other people, to make them aware of how precious they are, how loved they are, what dignity they have, what capabilities they have, what strengths have been invested in them, and to help them overcome their fears and their doubts, and that they can, in the end, revel in the glory of love that actually keeps evil way outside of it, and that we have a togetherness where there is no more crisis or tears or weeping. And that is our mission as logotherapists, to do that for others, to spare them those crises, to spare our children those crises, and to bring them up as real witnesses for life and for what is good and true and beautiful in life. Yes, thank you. That was lovely.
And you know, Teria, I think it's very possible to do that. I recently attended a talk by Mandy Wiener, who is a journalist in South Africa of note. And she was talking about, forget about politicians, forget about those leaders who assume responsibility for all of our lives. She said, look at community-based initiatives for our salvation. And so as logotherapists, I would consider us a community-based organization that's doing that job.
Absolutely.
That's what we're doing. And yeah, we keep looking at where's this leader that's going to lead us to salvation. They don't exist. They don't exist. They can't exist, because the mere act of becoming a political leader required that they do evil. So by the very nature of how they got there, they're not capable of leading us to where we need to be. And in that case, I would say our role and what we are doing is so profound and can play such an incredible role in moving us forward in the right direction.
Oh, absolutely. You know, every one of us should be a leader. Everyone should lead. You lead a meaningful life. You lead a life that seeks to bring meaning into other people's lives. You lead by example. That is the leadership that a false leadership provokes in us. Why should there be these bad leaders over us? I mean, actually, you know, if we think about the war that is ongoing here, and that is really so difficult for us to do, because there are going to be civilians killed in the process, and a war is something horrible, and we're looking to the end of the war, but we have to get at the evil leadership, that those people that are keeping their communities in bondage, and who oppress them. Look what's happening in Iran. I find it so magnificent. And we had a student in Iran to see how the population is beginning to rise up against its evil leadership. And this is it, you know, that we say we will be the kind of community that cares, that lead by example. And why should we be the victims of this? This was the message that Frankl also brought out of the camps. And the defined power of the human spirit. Why should I be defined in this way, in that way, or be under the thumb of, and to come out with a strong sense of mission, to establish what we know can be established if only we play our part. And so, you know, we are the shapers of the future, and so, and our training of our children and our outreach to others, all of that of which we're doing, that determines our future. But it's a very active life of living the principles of true humanity. It's very, very active. It's not passive. It isn't withdrawn. It doesn't hide away. And it certainly doesn't compromise. Yeah. Cynthia, let's hear a few words from you. I'd love to hear your voice.
Okay. I was thinking when Coral was talking about leaders, no? My experience in my country, where we had leaders, I don't know whether they knew logotherapy, but who really left meaningful imprints in our lives. I always think of the father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi, who at those times grew up in family where he could have gone behind the luxury and convenience of life. But he didn't do that. He gave up what he could have easily had for the sake of a larger, illiterate, disadvantaged majority. And today, if we call ourselves a sovereign, secular, democratic republic, we owe it to him and people like him. So I think there were leaders like that. But the present world, there is a terrible crisis. I think that's what it is. Social reformers, leaders whom we could look up to, leaders whom we could tell children, see what they have done.
Yes.
But now it's a sad state of affairs all over the globe.
Yes. And what an example Gandhi said to us, that, you know, through the action of one man, such changes could be brought about. So, you know, this is the courage of the human spirit, to step out in such a way. It doesn't matter what the cost is to you, but you care so much for. This is the legacy that is left behind, that has a transformative effect for generations afterwards. Yeah. Come on, I'm going to ask. Yes.
I just wanted to add that we have these small prayer groups where women come together. And in almost all those groups, there is a strong prayer going up for Israel.
Oh, so wonderful. So wonderful.
Truly.
Yes.
Yeah. We are so far away. We get only the information through the media, but still there is a strong empathy that we feel and fervent prayers going up.
That is so magnificent. That is so magnificent. I think actually this is also how Frankl described prayer. It's that a real breakthrough, you know, which is really reaches out towards the beyond, that comes back to us with such blessing of anointing and protection, and courage to be what we we actually are meant to be. So it's wonderful. Yeah.
Teria,
Anybody else?
I'll leave space for anyone else, but I'll say something when I get another turn.
Oh, we'll get you have another turn.
Okay.
Say it.
I was thinking of what we started discussing about crisis and how crisis has the capacity to unite people. And as you know, I've done a lot of work on what we look at in the finiteness of time, being older, and looking at our limited time left. And I saw a very interesting thing the other day. Someone was saying, or I read it somewhere, that the world, in terms of the climate crisis, has now reached a stage where it too is finite. And maybe that'll be the very crisis that unites everybody behind the same cause, because that is a reality, and it's finite. And for the first time, every generation is recognizing that and having to react to that. And maybe that'll be the tipping point that brings us all together, ironically, and unites
Isn't that
everybody.
incredible? Here we see what Frankel said,
Yeah.
is the meaning of suffering, that it provokes us to
Yeah.
an awareness of what ought not to be. And, you know, and we begin to feel the preciousness of life when it is threatened, not so, or where we know there is a limited time left, or when we are at the crisis point of extinction. Like with climate change, that provokes, you know, so it actually, that rod, as we go through the valley of the shadow of death, is such a wonderful rod of correction, of calling us, of a challenge, like Frankel said, that life comes to us with the requirements of the right response. And if it's in the light of things that really disturb us, and that stops the flow of meaningful life, that makes us say, no, wait, we've got to do something about this. Isadora, thank you for your comment. We saw that, and Isadora just underlined what you were saying, Coral, of the preciousness of communities, a community that is bonded with each other, and a community that reaches out to the transcendent too. She spoke about prayer. In other words, that really treasures the gift of life, from a dimension where life is everlasting, because life is everlasting. It's just whether we would tune into that and retain it and delight in it and live it and not lose it. That's it. That's it. I'm so tired, everybody. I'm very tired. And thank you, Pan, by saying, lifting the load that other people can respond. I'm not at my clearest self, but I think we got the message.
We certainly did.
Yeah.
Thank you, Teria.
All right.
And stay well and stay safe and look after yourself.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
By the way, we've each got a bomb shelter. And we've been warned that, you know, if it is a multi-front attack, then, you know, when too many rockets come in, that the Iron Dome can't intercept them all. We've had 2 interceptions of rockets coming into Muriin, by the way. And, you know, the sirens go off, you go into the bomb shelter. But that if it's a multi-front attack, that, you know, you might have to stay in the bomb shelter for a prolonged period of time. David went shopping with a friend, and he said, wow, people have just been buying food. Many articles couldn't be found anymore. and making ready if such a thing should occur. But please God that it doesn't. You know, it's wonderful that America has shifted in a warship, should Hezbollah want to attack as well, to enter this war if need be, in order to secure Israel's survival. And we certainly will survive. You know, this is the survival story that is a story above all stories, is a story of hope that, that we are still here as a nation. After all the onslaughts that we've had to endure, I think we are a testimony to the fact that evil cannot triumph over the life that has been given us as an everlasting possession. So it's quite something. Anyway, I hope I needn't try and speak to you from a bomb shelter. That in any case, the internet, everything will be off. But let's watch this. I think it's very deeply meaningful to watch what is going to happen and how events are going to unfold, and that we can learn very deep lessons from this. And may it be like it is described in Psalm 118, that in the end there is rejoicing. Rejoice and not over me, oh my enemy, because so that we will see this kind of outcome. And like you said, a much stronger move forward of a mankind much more united around what should be, in a clear stand against what should not be. Okay. All right. Okay, everybody. Good night.
Good night, Teria. Good night,
Thank you,
Pam.
Teria.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Good
Coral.
night.
Thank
Ciao,
you.
ciao.
Good night.